The following video is from a presentation that Sorrel King and I gave to the Institute for Healthcare Improvement's Impact Network this fall. Sorrel is really a hero of mine. Her 18-month-old Josie died at my hospital as the result of medical mistakes. Sorrel and I are working together now, partnering to try to ensure that this doesn't happen again. She would like to share her story with you, and then we will discuss how we're partnering.
My daughter Josie died a year and a half ago at Johns Hopkins due to medical errors. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak at grand rounds to the doctors, nurses, and leadership of the hospital. I spoke about what happened to Josie and about the Josie King Patient Safety Program that is being launched. Reliving our tragedy was a painful and difficult thing for me to do. When Peter asked me 2 days later if I would be interested in going to Boston to speak at this conference, I quite honestly was not sure I had the strength to do it again so soon. After thinking about it, I realized I had to be here. Not only do I represent Josie, but I also represent all of the other children, the mothers, the fathers, the sisters, the brothers, the 98,000 people who die every year in this country from medical errors. I'm here for them, for their families, and for any future potential victims. I would like to share my story with you. I do this with the hope that what I'm about to tell you will make a difference in how you care for your patients and how strongly committed you and your hospital are to patient safety. Josie was 18 months old. She had brown eyes and light brown hair. She loved to dance and had just learned to bounce on the trampoline with her older siblings, Jack, Relly, and Eva. She had just learned to say, "I love you." In January of 2001, Josie was admitted to Johns Hopkins after suffering first and second degree burns from climbing into a hot bath. She healed well and within weeks was scheduled for release. 2 days before she was to return home, she died of severe dehydration and misused narcotics. I would like to take you through the events that resulted in this needless tragedy. Josie spent 10 days in the PICU. I was by her side every day and night. I paid attention to every minute detail of the doctors' and nurses' care, and I was quick to ask questions. I bonded with them and was in constant awe of the medical attention she received. Every time Josie moved or fussed, someone would be quick to push her pain button. I tried rubbing her head and found that often this would settle her. Much to our relief, Josie was experiencing a quick recovery. Her burns were healing beautifully. She was sent down to the intermediate care floor with expectations of being sent home in a few days. Her 3 older siblings prepared for her welcome home celebration. We were told that no one had ever been sent back up to the PICU. The following week, her central line had been taken out. I began noticing that every time she saw a drink, she would scream for it, and I thought this was strange. I was told not to let her drink. While a nurse and I gave her a bath, she sucked furiously on a washcloth. As I put her to bed, I noticed that her eyes were rolling back in her head. Although I asked the nurse to call the doctor, she reassured me that oftentimes children did this and her vitals were fine. I told her Josie had never done this, and perhaps another nurse could look at her. After yet another reassurance from another nurse that everything was fine, I was told that it was okay for me to sleep at home. I called to check in 2 times during the night and returned to the hospital at 5:30 in the morning. I took one look at Josie and demanded that a doctor come at once. She was not fine. Josie's medical team arrived and administered 2 shots of Narcan. I asked if she could have something to drink. The request was approved, and Josie gulped down nearly a liter of juice. Verbal orders were issued for there to be no narcotics given. As I sat with Josie, I noticed that the nurse on morning duty was acting very strangely. She seemed nervous, overly demonstrative, and in a hurry. Uneasy, I asked the other nurses about her, and they said she had been a nurse for a long time. Still worried, I expressed my concern to one of the doctors, and he agreed that she was acting a bit odd. Meanwhile, Josie started perking up. She was more alert and had kept all the liquids down. I was still scared and asked her doctors to please stay close by. At 1 o'clock, the nurse walked over with a syringe of methadone. Alarmed, I told her there had been an order for no narcotics. She said the orders had been changed and administered the drug. Josie's heart stopped as I was rubbing her feet. Her eyes were fixed and I screamed for help. I stood helpless as a crowd of doctors and nurses came running into her room. I was ushered into a small room with a chaplain. The next time I saw Josie, she had been moved back up to the PICU. Doctors and nurses were standing around her bed. No one seemed to want to look at me. She was hooked up to many machines and her leg was black and blue. I looked into their faces and said to them, "You did this to her, now you must fix her." I was told to pray. 2 days later, Jack, Relly, and Eva were brought to the hospital to kiss their beloved Josie goodbye. Josie was taken off of life support. She died in our arms on a snowy night in what's considered to be one of the best hospitals in the world. Our lives were shattered and changed forever. Josie died from severe dehydration and misused narcotics. Careless human errors. On top of our overwhelming sorrow and intense grief, we were consumed by anger. They say anger can do one of two things to you. It can cause you to rot away, or it can propel you forward. There were days when all I wanted was to destroy the hospital and then put an end to my own pain. My 3 remaining children were my only reason for getting out of bed and functioning. One day, I will tell them how they saved my life. Tony and I decided that we had to let the anger move us forward. We would do something good that would help prevent this from ever happening to a child again. It seemed the best place to start was with Johns Hopkins. Over the past year and a half, we have worked with the hospital to create the Josie King Patient Safety Program. Together, we launched the program last week. Josie's death was not the fault of one doctor or one nurse or one misplaced decimal point. It was the result of a total breakdown in the system. It was the result of a complete lack of communication between the different teams. It was the result of doctors and nurses not listening to a concerned parent. It was the result of a combination of many errors, all of which were avoidable. What if the nurse had called the doctor when Josie's eyes were rolling back in her head? What if she could have had a drink or had been hooked up to an IV? What if the residents had paid attention and seen that her weight had dropped over 15% in 24 hours? What if the nurse had not given her the methadone? What if someone had taken my concerns seriously? What if a patient safety program had been in place? I believe that if any one of these things had occurred, the outcome could have been different and Josie would be here today. 98,000 people die every year because of medical errors. Hospital errors are among the top 4 leading causes of death in the country. This problem is unlike cancer, AIDS, or other diseases where we must wait for a scientific breakthrough in order to save lives. Hospitals are a man-made epidemic. Nurses and doctors make mistakes and lives are being lost. These human errors need a human solution. You are the only ones that can solve this problem, not lawyers, not insurance companies, and not people like me. Much has to be done to accomplish this. We can start by first admitting to ourselves that we are fallible. The medical community must be open to the possibility that shortcomings do exist, and you must be prepared to make the necessary changes. Please take the time to listen to a parent when they are concerned. Please learn to trust a parent's instincts. Please communicate with each other, nurses to doctors, one team to another team. Please listen to the child. Is she crying because she's in pain, or is there some other reason? Please look at the child. Not all the answers are on your clipboards or computers. Thank you for listening to me today. For the past year and a half, I have known I would one day find the strength to share this story with those who can make a difference. My precious memories and everlasting love for Josie give me this strength, and I will not rest until we make something good come from her senseless death. I will not rest until hospitals become safer places. I'm not asking for your pity. I'm asking for your help. I do not know the answers. I only know that there is a problem that must be solved. Some of the best and brightest doctors and nurses in the country are in this room, and I know that together, if we are all committed and work hard, we can control hospital errors, and we can save the lives of other potential victims, other helpless children. Thank you.
Now that you've heard Josie's story, as Sorella eloquently told us, you can see how unique this Johns Hopkins Safety Program is, where we're combining patients and senior leaders and providers all together in an effort to accelerate our improvements in safety. I believe through these programs and through the Johns Hopkins Safety Program, we'll be able to achieve significant improvements in safety, moving from the rhetoric of patient safety to a reality. The Josie King program is already having an impact in our organization. Earlier this fall, Sorella and I gave pediatric grand rounds. It was truly a magical experience. That grand rounds, normally attended only by physicians, was attended by senior hospital leaders, other families who had been harmed, nurses, doctors, housekeepers, all sitting together agreeing to partner for safety. A nurse who was in the audience for that discussion shared a story with me how it affected her. A family on one of the pediatric floors came to her and asked to see the medication administration record. Initially alarmed, the nurse questioned why the family wanted this. The mom told her that her child had been hospitalized over 10 times this year and was quite complex, and she knows these medications better than anybody. She wanted to ensure that there were no mistakes. She had caught several in the past. The nurse, remembering our message, said, "Not only will I show you the medication record, but would you please check in every medication with me before we give it to help ensure that there's no mistakes." This partnering with families and nurses so that we're all the eyes and ears for safety is what the Josie King Patient Safety Program is all about.